I'm Coffee Kevin, and we are happy to be here today. The other day, the day before the holiday, and it's a holiday in the U.S., by the way, I want to wish everyone a belated Happy Independence Day. We were going to broadcast the other day, and we use a device called Sling Studio. I don't want to get technical, but there was a failure of it, and we've had it happen a number of times lately, but each time Michael was able to restore it. But the other day we were about 5 seconds in, and he started shaking his head and flailing his hands around, and we were scratching our collective heads for a few minutes trying to figure out how to get it up and running. It turns out there is a pretty simple fix for it if it happens again, but Sling Studio didn't claim Facebook made a change, and they've had to figure out how to accommodate it, but it requires rebooting the system. So if it's unlikely to happen again, but I apologize. I literally am trying to stay on a twice a week schedule. Meanwhile, happy Independence Day, and to those who celebrate, I can't imagine not being independent in some way or fashion. We're going to talk about home roasting, and I had done a clip and I had some coffee prepared. And meanwhile, take a look at this clip. It's done outside. Well, I'm outside here it's a little bit hot today, but and a little mosquito-y, more than a little, but we're going to be out here for just a few minutes. This is a Sivetz heat gun roaster, and it's an air roaster. It's just like a corn popper, and it looks like a hair dryer, but it's not. It looks like I used it too long. And then I've got some green coffee, and I'll show you the coffee I've got. It's Black Condor Hoya, I think that's pronounced, and it is a Colombian coffee, and I got it at, I think, Metropolis. They gave a presentation last fall, and very interesting. Now, I've kept that in the freezer, just like George Howe taught me to, and let's see how it roasts up, okay? We're going to just pour, I don't know, this is about 150 grams of coffee, green coffee, and the way you do it is you just pour it into this bin on top. Let me put this somewhere safe where it won't, if it falls, it won't hurt anyone. And let's give her a rip. You'll see this really got very little control on it. That's a kind of an airflow control, so that's really it. And then it's got an on-off cold switch. Cold will be for cooling, of course. The coffee means there's no heat, but hot is hot. And then the rest of it's controlled by that airflow. And it's when you're, I'll tell you one thing, when you're outside roasting on a day like today, you really have appreciation for what your roaster endures, because I'm sure it's, if anything, even warmer inside when you're roasting. And I have to roast outside, but they have to roast inside. Okay, let's go. Now, you'll see, it's really going to take a few minutes, but I'm shaking it pretty much the whole time. At first, it just sits there because it doesn't have any pop to it. So I'm going to turn it up and make it, and by turning this down, and then we're going to, there we go, we're starting to get some heat. But I don't want to shake it around quite a bit because I don't want any of the beans to get scorched. It's one of the goals of roasting. And this is a very analog way to roast, but I'll tell you one thing, it really makes you close to the process, and in many ways that I think is a real advantage. You know, it gets you, I don't know, whenever you do things manually, you get a real appreciation. It's like driving somewhere instead of flying. I guess that's as close to manual. I haven't walked any great distance, but when you do that, don't you really feel like how far one city is from another, and you go through the different types of terrain change? I think it brings travel to a whole new level. Oh, look at this. There's a lot of, chaff flying off here. This is another reason not to do it indoors, and there's another reason. We believe in long marriages in our family. And another thing, my wife's just fine with me doing this out here. It's kind of adds to the compost, don't you know? At least I've told her it does. We're starting to get you're not going to be able to see this super well. I don't have the overhead camera with me out here. Maybe we'll do one someday. If we could figure out how to roast inside or bring the gear outside. Now I'm roasting it, again, full bore right now. I'm kind of looking at this like searing a steak, and then it's starting to pop, and as it does that, I'm probably going to open this up a little bit to lower the heat. And I'm roasting about half strength now. And look at it, really, it roasts fast, and I will tell you, the difference between roasted where I like it and over roasting is so slight. It's that finding that window of opportunity, to me, is the real art of roasting. And I will tell you, I don't consider myself by any stretch a great roaster, but I still do it from time to time, even if it's just to prove to myself the worth of the really great people who can do it. Sort of like, taking the violin out or the piano, if you play piano, even if it's just to remind you what a great pianist, one of the great pianists is. Okay, and now it's pretty good. It's second crack by the way it's roasting. Now I'm going to go a little bit further, and then I'm going to shut it off on the cool. And I think I'm going to do that right now. And then I'm going to, as much as I can, open the doors, and then the rest of it will just gradually, it'll stop cooking pretty fast. Not instantly. And then by clicking, I realized that was a layman's term. My turn. Popping, crackling. First crack. I took it to second crack. And now it looks, and again, I don't know if you're not going to be able to see it, and I'm not going to risk tilting this enough so you can. But we'll see it in a minute. I'm sure you heard the crackling. And as soon as it's cool enough to touch, I will pour it out into a bowl. I'll actually pour it into the same glass that I poured it from. And it should be fine. This amount of beans cools rather rapidly, which is good because cooling rapidly is very important to halting the roast process and making sure you don't have an overdone coffee. And I'm not guaranteeing this will be, I can almost touch it. I'm going to go a little bit further. It's a great thing to do when it's about 92 degrees out and gets you out of the house for a little while. It's not as noisy as most of the activities in the neighborhood. There's a nice breeze blowing today. I could go for it being a little cooler, and I could go for the sun being a little less, but wouldn't be much of a human if I didn't complain about the weather just a bit. All I need to do is think about January here in the Chicago area, and I can easily get nostalgic for this weather. All right, and now it's pretty cool. Okay, it is. All right. So now, forgive my reach out of the camera, but here we go. And let's see if I can, oh, I see, I've intertwined myself just a bit. There we go. All right, and then here we go. Oh, that's good enough. And then there. You can see, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that great? You see those beans, they're really nicely roasted. They're nice and very, you know, it's probably a light roast, but hopefully it's just medium, not too peanutty. And you know, this is where these little distinctions, now I'm sure if I were a better roaster, I'd have something to, well, it smells pretty good, and I have a feeling it'll make a pretty decent cup of coffee, and I'll enjoy it. Also, the beans themselves are really high quality, and they are from, let me show you the package one more time. I love the name, Black Condor Hoya, and it says it has sugarcane, cocoa, molasses, notes of caramel, deep, creamy body. Can't do any better than that. This roaster, by the way, is a Sivetz roaster, Michael Sivetz himself. And if you look very carefully, it's still here, isn't it? Yeah. You can see Michael Sivetz's name. There it is. Michael Sivetz, he signed it. And yes, I know I've had people warn me that eventually will come off. I probably shouldn't roast with it very much. I don't, to be honest, but for the video I did, and I thought it was worth it, worth the risk. Michael Sivetz was a very interesting person in the coffee world. Historically, he really had a lot to do with bringing, I guess we call it specialty coffee or gourmet coffee or connoisseur coffee, whatever you want to call it. Coffee for taste. I like the word culinary attached to it, but it's making coffee with the idea that it's taste. It's not just to stay awake. It's not just a patent medicine that has anecdotal reputation for keeping people awake. It is a taste treat. That's what coffee is to me, and that's what it was to Michael. And I'm pleased to say that I had several long conversations with him, one of which I turned into an interview. It must be laying around Coffee Companion somewhere. But he was quite he was quite a fun character, and he did not suffer fools well, however, so he thought. If people approached him and he didn't agree with what they were saying, he could be very direct. But I found him delightful in my brief dealings with him. Anyway, I'm Coffee Kevin, back to the show. Not the greatest home roaster. In fact, after roasting the coffee and tasting it, I'm sure the coffee's great. I have to try again. I didn't roast it long enough. I did what I accuse a lot of third wave roasters of doing, and that is roasting it. Is this coffee or sushi? I went out and got a coffee that's reliable, that I miss, that isn't around much, a Mocha Java. We've got to do a segment just on Mocha Javas and various ones. Allegro does a really good Mocha Java, and hats off to Kevin Knox, who, for a large roaster, and I mean comparatively large, they're a specialty roaster, but a large specialty roaster, kind of in an odd place in history now. There are small batch roasters all over the place, and there are large company corporate roasters. But there is kind of a middle ground, and Allegro kind of fits that portrait. There and there aren't enough people like this. And the reason Boyd's is gone. Boyd's is now Farmer Brothers. I guess some people would say Intelligentsia and Pete's, Stumptown are medium-sized roasters. To me, they're large roasters. Allegro is still, though, it acts more like a smaller roaster. And its beginnings, Allegro were from Superior Coffee, which was the Chicago roaster. And they moved, they sold the company, they sold Superior, and then they to a Dutch company, and then moved to Colorado and started roasting, and then eventually Whole Foods purchased them. But they are still run pretty independently, at least they seem to be. And I happen to like their Mocha Java. Mocha Java is a coffee you don't see very often. It's the original coffee blend. Anyway, it's slightly dark, but nothing like a Starbucks or Pete's roast. It's fully developed. It's just on the other side of dark, and it depends, frankly. From time to time, they lighten it up just a bit. If you get it done, roasted in any of the company stores, they have some roasters, Java Master roasters in some Whole Foods stores. They still roasted fairly light there, but done by Allegro, generally a little darker. But I think it's a great coffee. There's a certain taste to the Yemen, and they don't claim it here, but I still suspect, I'll have to find out from them. I promise to find out if they're still using Yemen mocha. Yemen is the original mocha. Although, as recently a roaster pointed out to us in one of our interviews, that's arguable that they're, Ethiopia. Some people claim it's Ethiopia. Some people say it's whatever passed through the port of Yemen got labeled, or the port of Mocha got labeled Mocha. Didn't matter where it was really from, but I think it's Yemen. The best Mocha Javas I've ever had were Yemen-based, along with an Indonesian coffee, usually Sumatra, but not always. Java can be substituted. But I think they were pretty steadfast on using that blend at Allegro. But again, I'll have to find out if that's still true. Well, I'm using that coffee to make a Chemex. I had a lot of opportunities over the holiday to make coffee for people. 27 grams. Medium, regular drip grind coffee. You can show the overhead mic on this. Yeah. And see, it's a little dark, although I think it's exaggerated by the lighting we're using. I don't think it's quite as dark as it looks on that shot. But it is a really, it's beautiful coffee. And 27 grams, just a gentle shake. And then 198 degrees. Pour it in. And then just enough to get it all wet. And again, the overhead shot, you'll see it's foamed up a little bit. It's pretty fresh coffee. We need to figure out a way to light this a little more, because I think that this is reading darker. No, I don't think you can do it right now. Yeah, no. We'll figure it out off camera. The But it is an error. It goes through fairly fast. There we go. See, it's foaming up nicely. And that's a good sign. That means it's fresh. Not as fresh as the home roast coffee that I did 2 days ago. No, but it's pretty darn fresh. Fresh enough. One might even say ideal, because there's an argument, and I expect Glenn Puss, one of our viewers and a colleague of mine, to write about this. He, of course, is an inventor of a coffee machine that roasts and brews, and definitely is an advocate of using only coffee that's hours old. But it's not settled science yet that coffee the same day is the only coffee worth drinking. I think this coffee tastes great. Now we're going to, if we get a side shot, Michael, we're going to put it up to this point on the coffee. Can we get a side shot? There we go. Right there. We're going to go right to that point for 27 grams. That is 2 perfect cups of coffee with this coffee maker. And I think this is, well, is it as easy as a Keurig? No. But it's real easy. And the cleanup is as easy. The cleanup is nothing. The cleanup is pull this out, toss, and if you're fastidious, you want to throw your grounds in the compost pile, throw this, in fact, I believe this will decay in there too, and rinse the Chemex. Best of all, your coffee never is just in glass. You never get any kind of there we go. Believe it or not, if you're playing with the contact time, you can make the contact time a little longer by pouring it a little higher. I notice I just did that intuitively. I'm so used to making this coffee, figure, once or twice a day for the last 30 years. It will actually slow it down by putting more water in it. Don't know why that is. We'll have to get someone to tell us that. This is a... Oh, that's great. I'm glad you went to that shot. I'm just watching the show today. Yeah, look at that. Perfect time. And you see how one reason everybody likes this method is... Go to the overhead one more time, Michael. Thank you. Look at this. Look at how perfectly even the extraction is. You can't beat that, and really the best that any electric can do is match it, and that would be fine with me, but very few do, to be honest. And that's one of the reasons when people say, why do you still use a Chemex? Well, that's why. I think that's all the water I'm going to need. And Michael got cheated the other day. He didn't get a cup of coffee, which is part of his negotiated fee. We are just about there. And I think this is going to just, I don't always hit it like this, but I think I did today. This last pour, when it's done, is going to be right here on the side, right where it should be. I don't even need any more water. I can turn it off. This will just keep it warm in perpetuity. The brim kettle is fabulous. I used it. That's one reason I test things for 30 days before I review them. There's no. It eliminates the risk of new car smell and, you know, the whole unboxing orgasm that people are so excited about a new product. We all get a little bit of that. We all have a little bit of that in us. I do too. But then weeks later, I see on Amazon or various review sites people coming in and editing their initial review. Well, I jumped the gun. So often it happens. And I, for years, read audio reviews, camera reviews. I'm into gear, okay? And you would get people coming in and constantly rewriting themselves. Okay, perfect. We are done, and I don't know any way to show this properly, but again, we'll work on lighting it after we're done today. But this is how this should be. It's perfect, and I will now save it for proper disposal later. Here's our perfect Chemex, and we're going to pour this, and then I'm going to replay the pitch for the funding, because, and I understand, we haven't been probably promoting it to the maximum. I have to admit, I primarily don't consider myself, and I don't think anyone, certainly my banker doesn't consider me a businessman. I do this because I love it, but in our funding campaign, I probably should be focusing on that 8 hours a day instead of what I'm going to do to show you things on coffee and getting excited about new products to bring to CoffeeCon and planning the next show. So I'm very excited. I've got 2020 pretty much nailed as far as the exciting products. I'm constantly looking. I probably call 3 people a week that have new products I've heard about and interested to see if they would be a good fit. But I haven't, so I'm going to play this again. Please, at least spend the $10. It supports us. I appreciate that. But second of all, vote for a city, because I need to show that list to the exhibitors. And I was hoping to have enough votes to get them excited about various cities. It's the closest thing to pre-selling the tickets. And we're even, frankly, starting to pre-sell the tickets, I believe, for next year's shows. That may or may not be true. You'd have to look at Eventbrite for that. But I truthfully have not been there to look at it lately. But definitely vote. We'd love to bring CoffeeCon to a southern city, too, in the U.S. And we thought Tampa for the East Coast or Austin for the West Coast. Let us know if you think they're the wrong cities. I know someone sent me a message the other day, it really should be Atlanta. Well, we've looked at Atlanta too before. Atlanta would be a great possibility. So I have no problem with that. I want to learn, but I want to see. I keep telling the manufacturers, the public wants this. The public really wants people in the regular world out there that drink coffee want to learn everything about it. It helps me validate that argument with them. They're not eager. They're not eager to find new ways to spend money and to attend. And again, I have to start over with them that some of them are directly opposed to the idea of, they consider a waste of time going and talking to consumers. They really just want to talk to buyers of department stores all day long, apparently. And that's what they like because that's what trade shows are. Or I don't really know why. I was talking to one of our exhibitors who wants to go to trade shows because he wants to sell a fairly obscure product that I don't think the trade will ever buy for coffee stores. But I think consumers, it's an ideal product. So, and my thinking is you just talk directly. It's best when you talk directly to who you want, who you think your customer is. All right, let's just show the clip and then let's have our coffee.
Through August 1st on Indiegogo, vote for which 3 of 6 cities most crave a CoffeeCon event in 2020. Taste, try, and learn everything about coffee. CoffeeCon is for you, the enthusiast. CoffeeCon.
I love that ending with George Howell, if you didn't recognize him. That's just a great shot of him. That was in San Francisco. And I've got a lot of, I don't have as much footage as I thought I had. You know, it's like, anyway, I love that. All those shots are great. Okay, this is, again, a Mocha Java. And I will pour Michael's in just a moment because it'll stay warm for him. And he likes it a little warmer than I do. This is, you know, it's my opinion that if it weren't invented, the blend would be invented as a response to the simplicity of the. Let's look at music. If we compare coffee to music, we like a lot of different forms of music that are like rock and roll. In the U.S., I heard a lot of rock and roll. You say classic rock and roll at the all the local festivities for Independence Day. You know, they're a mixture of a blend of blues, jazz, folk, all kinds of textures in there. And I love music, so coffee is the same thing. A blend. You know, this has the greatness of a Mideastern coffee and the volcanic soil of the totally different of Asian coffee. Wow. George Howell, speaking of him, the Coffee Connection used to go out of their way to advertise that they put a small amount of Colombian coffee in their Mocha Java. They had a Yemen, they had Indonesian, and they had 3 corners of the world, you know, and they had this terrific blend. And when that coffee cooled, it was roasted by a roaster named Robert Tatala, who worked with George. I didn't think of George primarily as a roaster, but I still think of him primarily today as a cupper. As someone who, and really what George has is, what I admire so much, is similar. He's me, only he's for real. I mean, he's so dedicated to just the tasting. He's the ultimate art collector of coffees. George has an art background, art in his. It's interesting. 2 people I admire a lot in the coffee world both have art backgrounds. Kenneth Davids was an art history professor in Berkeley, and George Howell was an art major in college at Harvard. And delicious. Exceptional. CoffeeCon is all about the world of coffee. Come into our world. And please, if you haven't voted, please vote and please share it. If you're not interested in voting, it's okay. If I'm still if you're watching, that's enough support to me. But if you can, please share our links, because nothing hurts more at the end of a coffee con to get a message from someone who says, I just realized I didn't know about your event until I saw something on the news. This is one of the challenges. The media will come the day of. I think they come because, for one thing, they like drinking all the coffee, but they come and they will post something that night, and in effect it tells people about something that happened that they now can't go to. That is one of the risks of producing. But I will read a tweet or something from someone, oh, OMG, CoffeeCon was here today and I didn't know, I missed it. My life is over. I mean, I hope that's really not how they feel. It's just for fun. But I'm sure there's a wee bit of truth in that. And yeah, please let everyone know, because we're the only thing out there like this. Everything else that tries to do something, and there are some small-scale shows that just try to do the tasting part. That's ambitious enough, because they still have to deal with the electricity part, but the complexity of putting together the classes is really a big part of CoffeeCon. So I'm very happy we do it. Pat and I are eager to do next year, but we really look for the support. I've been boasting to the industry that the public will let you know, and we've got less than 30 days left on this campaign to do that. So thank you. Enough of a pitch. I'm Coffee Kevin. Have a great rest of the weekend if you're celebrating, and it's kind of a kickoff of I always think of 4th of July as the big kickoff of the summer in the U.S. at least. So regardless of weather's been summer in Florida for months, it's probably not quite summer yet in some parts of the country. Well, here it is. Anyway, I'll enjoy the rest of this coffee, and we'll see you next week on Tuesday.